we should all just have a weekly group chat that we don't record.
Yeah. Yeah. I would love to say some things that don't go on air.
Yeah. Yeah, same, man.
Oh, good deal. And dude, and I mean Callie too. But Gaby just knows his stuff about the Hurricanes.
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
I don't know if there's someone I love talking to about the Canes more than Gaby, just because he knows what's going on. And he just does a great job at expounding and going into detail that we're not talking to a huge X's and O's football genius. He breaks it down and tells it to you in a very plain way what's going on with UM.
No, he's amazing, man. I think I think he's got a long career of doing football type stuff ahead of him, and I'm intrigued to see where it takes him, because he's really good at what he does.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Great people, great guys. And we have now one more guest.
Yep. And we're running behind, so let's see. I'll get him on right now. We're getting Brian Monroe, former UM player. So I'm excited, man. Good job getting. You just keep these lineups so stacked for us, bro.
Well, thank you. Yeah, let's get him on.
Okay. Brian, how you doing, man? You're live on the Fours Up pod.
What's up, man? How you doing?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. We now welcome on former UM punter, and now he's on 790 The Ticket, 560 WQAM, Brian Monroe. Brian, what's going on, brother?
Man, just sitting here doing nothing.
Yeah, right.
And, it's like everybody else right now, right? In this tough time that we're going through, we trying to get through it. And I mean, the good thing is you get to study up on a lot of players, catch on to some film for next year. But yeah, man, just getting through it.
Okay. Well, I mean, let's jump right into it. Who you've been watching on film lately?
We're gonna get so buddy of mine, John Beeson. We're gonna get into doing pretty much the whole team, since we ain't got nothing else to do. So since I do the pregame show for the Canes and then also do a lot of stuff on 790, it'll give me pretty much the Rolodex of what to do for each player, strengths, weaknesses, the whole 9 yards. So we're gonna get into that probably this weekend. So we haven't started yet, but we're gonna get into probably pretty much the whole team.
Okay. What are your thoughts on the Canes going into the 2020 season?
I mean, they got a lot of work, right? We look at the last 2 years with this team, right? There's been talent on the team, but there's been something missing. So obviously, Coach Rick, he left. They're bringing Manny Diaz. He brings in a new offensive coordinator, new offensive staff. That didn't work. I commend Manny Diaz for switching it up and going to the spread finally, bringing in Lashley. I'm very eager to see exactly what this team can do in the spread, because this is what these kids have been doing since Pop Warner. You get a quarterback like D'Eriq King that's been able to perform at a high level already in college football in this offense, so he'll be exciting to see. But when it comes down to it, it starts up front, right? Offensive, defensive line, and we have been really bad in offensive line for a while, whether that's been young, miscommunicating, or just getting beat one-on-one. And then we have some special guys on the defensive line here and there, but we collectively as a group, we really haven't had that like we had back in the day. But we have some guys this year that if they can take the next step of defensive tackle, I think this defense can be special again. But yeah, that offensive line is the thing that worries you was going into spring. Now that it's canceled, it's going to put the Canes behind the 8 ball when it comes to next season, because they're not going to be able to gel like they want in spring and this offseason.
Yeah. No, so, I think you sorry, Jordan, go ahead.
Oh, you're fine. I just got a quick question. So who are some of the more unsung heroes on the team, guys that don't get a lot of exposure, don't get a lot of credit, I guess? Who are some of your favorite guys in that role that you're excited to dig in and watch some film and see how they did last year?
Honestly, I really want to see more on D'Eriq King for obvious reasons. I think, we haven't had a dynamic quarterback at that position, I'll say ever, at Miami. We've had some special quarterbacks, obviously, going to the 80s, but we're talking about dynamic as far as an athlete who can do it all. We've never had that before at Miami, so I'm very eager to sit down and actually see what his strengths and weaknesses are. And then we have a lot of young guys, I think, that could step up big time. Jeremiah Payton, I think can be a guy that's depending on. I love the two true freshmen that came from Deerfield. Just watching him in the one practice that I did see, he never dropped a ball. He's already thick. Looks like he's been hitting the weights hard. I think he's going to be a young man that contributes year one, as well as his teammate Knighton. You know, I like Cam Harris and what he does, but he's more of a kind of a power back, right? He may give you one cut and go, try to run you over. We don't really have that scat. I'm going to make one or two guys miss, hit 60 yards and go to the house. Now, I know we have Chaney coming in as well, but he's injured, so I haven't seen him play yet. But just from seeing the quick burst that you saw from Knighton, the way he hit the hole, move, and have that scat ability, he, to me, looks like he could be somebody special in this offense, especially since in the spread, he's going to have opportunities to have, you know, little numbers inside the box as well. And then you look on defense, Bubba Bolden. I think before he got injured, was a guy that really was going to contribute for this defense and really hold down the safety position. So I'm eager to see him come back from the injury.
I mean, I completely agree. I'm a huge fan of Bubba Bolden. I said that when he came to Miami, this is a guy that has the talent that he will be playing on Sunday in a few years. I think he's one of the more talented players to come through Miami in a few years. I want to talk about your time as a Hurricane. Correct me if I'm wrong. You're wrong, or if I'm wrong. You played from 03 to 06, right?
Correct.
Okay, so when you walked in as a true freshman, Miami had just appeared in their second straight national championship game. What was it like walking into that program and feeling those expectations for Miami? Like, what was the feeling around Coral Gables when you came in as a freshman?
I think it was different from now. I mean, obviously, you know, you walk into the locker room. I walked into, we had, 6 first rounders on that team. So it was completely different because the teams that I were on, the players police themselves, pretty much coach themselves. So when you walk into the locker room, yeah, at the beginning, it's like you and only the freshmen, so you guys get to know each other. But then the juniors and seniors and sophomores, they come in and instill their seniority about, you know, what's about to happen, what you're going to have to do, the whole 9 yards. But, you know, they were tough on us, but I think they were tough on us for a reason. You know, they really wanted to push you because you're talking about guys that came in here as number one players in America. Now you're 5th on the depth chart. And that was like an eye-opening experience for some of these high school guys that have always been the man. And I think that competition is really what made those teams great. You know, for me and some other guys, it was like a nerve-wracking thing. You're walking in here and you're like, I just watched him on national TV. I just watched him. He's going to be a first-round pick. And then also, we also had all the guys that just graduated. They were there, too, as well, as far as training and just visiting. So Andre Johnson was there a lot. Ed Reed was there a lot. So these are guys that you like, okay, these are the best of the best. And here I can pick the brain. I can talk to them about anything. I think it was more of a nervous excitement that now that you're part of this and now you have to prove yourself why you should be wearing the U.
So we've had one of your former teammates, Levon Ponder. We've had him on the podcast a few times. And one thing that I've always been interested in hearing him talk about, so how is the current state of the program? How is that different from your time as a player?
I would say the current state is the guys in the locker room, right? You can always have talented guys because we are in South Florida, who's the hotbed of players in America. But I think that when I was there, like I said, the guys policed themselves. The guys held themselves accountable. You know, when it came to 7-on-7, when it came to off-season stuff where coaches couldn't be involved, they were the ones that ran it. Meetings, even sometimes, players run it. Like you'd walk into a meeting, Sean Taylor, he's the one on the board and stuff like that, or Jonathan Bilmer. I don't think they have that leadership right now from talking to some of the guys and some of the guys that I know. And I just think that it's a different world right now in college sports. And, you know, we didn't have social media like these kids do nowadays. And they come in here with 60,000 followers, 100,000 followers, and everyone's always pumping up the head. You're the man. You should do this. You can do that. You should go transfer. You should do this, instead of like fighting, you know. And
yeah,
you don't see as many kids fighting and enjoying that competition because, you know, when people talk about stories, oh, the Green Tree practice field, you know, practice was harder than games. It really was. Like you would used to go to the practice and see some of the things that was going on. You'd be like, wow. I mean, our one-on-ones that we had, you're talking about Kellen Winslow going against John Vilma. You had Sean Taylor going against Dre. Like, the one-on-ones, the competition. The defense never even wanted to give up a touchdown to the scout team when I was there. They would literally try to decapitate you. And I don't think that competition is there at the Miami. I don't think the leadership is there within the locker room now. We've had a couple. You've had the Shaq Quartermans, you've had the DJ Dallases of the world and stuff like that. But it takes a collective group to hold each other accountable and not go out before games or the week of and the whole 9 years like that. I would have never flown back in the day. You have to have kids that hold themselves accountable, that want to be great and not just say it, for this team to get back on the national stage and stay there.
Well, and I mean, yeah, you said it perfectly. And we were talking earlier in the show how those leaders, like a guy like a Ken Dorsey, those players like Ed Reed, we haven't had those kind of leaders in a long time. When you were there, and not like 03, because I mean, you say like obviously like a guy like Vilma, Sean Taylor, like 04, 05, who were the real leaders of that team and that really stood out to you and made an impression on you?
I would say as we got older, the John Beesons of the world, the Roger McIntoshes of the world, Greg Olson, Brandon Merriweather, those were our, more of our vocal guys that would lead from example as far as weight room, practice, the Kyle Wrights of the world, But we still had guys because they were learning from the guys before them as far as how to handle business, how to study, how to go ahead and train in the off season, how to, hey, yeah, we just did a 2-a-days, but let's go ahead and get some extra work in, whether that's the jug machines or in the film or just going and getting extra, running in and stuff like that. So, Rock Atkins, Kareem Brown, we had a lot of guys, and I guess people think since like, oh yeah, after the 03 team, you guys are terrible, and I'm like, well, my junior year we still ranked number 3 in the country, and if we didn't lose to Georgia Tech at home at night on a Thursday, we're probably talked about in the national championship conversation right there. So, we had studs, we had leaders and stuff like that. It's just that you just don't get the love as some of the teams. And I guess since Miami hasn't been what they've been before, everyone thinks this 03 was over with.
Yeah. Well, do you think that coaches can create that kind of atmosphere, or do you think that those type of players that step up and hold the team accountable and just have that that alpha leadership, are those kind of kids just born that way, or do you think coaches can influence that?
You can create it a little bit, but you need those guys to do it themselves. No one can push you to be great. No one can motivate you to be great. It's going to take yourself looking at yourself in the mirror and say, I need to do this. I had a coach, Don Solinger, and he would be the hardest coach, and he'd rip you to your face, to the media, the whole 9 yards. But he always said it's about the man in the mirror. And, at first you never really understood it as an 18-year-old kid, 19-year-old kid. Like, why is the dude going so hard on me? Why does he keep saying this? And then you realize that as you get older, what he was trying to instill with you. Being around so many great leaders, I don't think it's something that you can create. I think it's something that's in you. From day one, as a freshman, one of our biggest vocal leaders was John Beeson, and that was just in him. It's something that, since we've become very close friends, that you can see that his whole entire life, from middle school, from him going to Shaman Amadana, leading, from example from there to going to the pros, being a first-round pick, Pro Bowl, the whole 9 yards. It's something that's within these kids. Now, I will say this, the class that they brought in, you're talking about 13, I believe, early enrollees, which has never happened at Miami. That tells you, one, that these kids want to come in here, work hard, and change the culture and change what's going on. Now, I haven't spoke to the young men yet individually, but you can just tell by some of the answers that they want to be the class that turns around and be great. A guy that I wish that we had longer than for 1 year was KJ Osborne. KJ Osborne is exactly what you look for in a football player. When I met him the first time when he was on his visit, the first thing he said was, hey, nice to meet you. I can't wait to get down here and work. Now, it takes you back because you're like, well, I haven't heard that from somebody, before. And he followed through with it. As soon as he came down here, extra time on the jugs, anytime after practice. And I kind of very thankful that KJ came to this team last year, because if we didn't have him in that wide receivers room, what we really had as a leader or someone to motivate, the younger players and the older players, I guess you can say, that left early, as far as who's going to pick it up and be that guy.